What's going on, you guys? This is Gary B. Jr., your simple solutionist, and I am excited about something that FreeShow just dropped in their latest update. Today is June 16th, 2025. And when you're hearing this, it may be years later or some months later, but right now, FreeShow just came out with gradients and special effects. Now, the gradients are for backgrounds, they're for text boxes and for text. And the special effects currently are in the overlay section. So let's get an idea of what this might look like. All right. So it would be something like this. So let's clear this out so you can see the actual text there. So for gradient backdrops, we know about those, right? So you can make a gradient backdrop. This is fading from black to white, and you can change how much is the gradation is. But we also can do gradients on text now. And this is really cool. This one is kind of inspired by Indiana Jones with that color gradient from the orange down to the white. But you can combine the two. So you can take the text and put it on a gradient backdrop. So gradient text with the gradient backdrop, and you get something like this, which is still pretty cool. And you can take it a step further and you can add special effects. And now it looks like it's just a pile of snow with the gradient on the text and gradient on the backdrop. And this is all done in FreeShow. There was no special program that I used. I didn't use Canva or anything special like that. And so let's talk about how we did that. All right. Let's talk about how we got to this point here. So first off, we made a gradient backdrop. And what I did is I ended up making mine into a template so I could use it later on. So let's look at what that template looks like. Let's see here. So this is the gradient backdrop. If I right click on this, let's look and see what it is. So the text box is just plain white text. I've got the text aligned to the top, but then we've got the item, and the item itself has this background color, this two-tone, right? And that two-tone is a gradient. And when I go down here to the bottom, you can select that and you'll see the two different colors. I had to make the angle be 180 degrees. That's what makes it flat. Okay. Then I changed the positioning to where it'll be black all the way up to 51% of the screen. So a little bit more than half the screen is completely black. And then it starts to fade out into whatever the next color is. And the next color starts to fade in to where at 55, it's 100% white. Okay. At the 55% mark of the page. So there's about 4 degrees of gradation in there, four points of gradation out of 100, right? So not degrees, but 4% of it. And so I saved that by just hitting done, and you get something like that. And it kind of looks like a bit of a blur, right? It's not completely gradient. You can do that if you want to kind of have this really smooth gradient that goes from with black at the very top, and it just kind of gradually fades and it'll turn gray and then it'll turn white. I wanted something a little bit more drastic because I wanted it to recreate ultimately that snow effect, right? So that's how that particular setup was. But then I decided to add a gradient text. And so I made a separate template just with that text by itself because all these can stand alone. So if we go here, you'll see that I've got my text and it's in the center of the page, but it looks white. This is the hard thing about using the gradients right now, at least as of June 16, 2025. They won't reflect here, but you'll see it down in your templates, the updates that you've got. So let's go to the text box itself. This is just one big text box that I made that fills the entire page. And it's got a font called Fantasy, and then the text color is a gradient, and this is what the gradient looks like. So we talked about it before. So up to 40% of it is orange. And then it starts to gradually change to yellow for about 20 points or 20%. And then at 60%, it's 100% orange. But then by the time it gets to 70%, it turns completely white. And that's what you've got there. And that's how this works. And you can add as many layers as you want. So I can add another layer of white and make it be red, for example. And you'll see that show up there. I don't want that. I wanted it to end with white because I want the white to kind of be the bottom of the text like it's in the snow. So I'm going to delete that. You can just hit these little trash cans and it'll get rid of it. All right. Then you hit done. So we got text, but then I made a template that includes both that background and the foreground, and it looks like this one. Okay. Now note, when you're doing this, if you're making your own gradients and you're making your own templates, it will not reflect in your edit page. However, it will reflect on your slides. And so right now, this looks like all black and white, black top, white bottom, and white text. However, when I go to the show and I go to the combined version here, this is that template. Notice that it shows me the orange and the yellow and the white gradient on it there. All right. So that's important to understand. And then you can add in special effects, and then the special effects are overlays. All right. And so when you go to the special effects area, you can go to new effect and you'll get an option. So I'm gonna call this one new snow, and we'll see how I added that. All right, so it starts out completely blank, just like any other slide would, but then you have to click the add button here. And you'll see all kind of stuff. You'll see stars and rain and snow and galaxies and grass and rainbows. Oh my, right? You get all that stuff. And I just selected snow, and you'll see it kind of falls pretty slow based on whatever your default or whatever you last had it on maybe, but I think this is just the default, and I can speed that up. So I want it to be a bit faster. Right? You'll see it there. It's like it's building up. And then I want the size to be bigger as well. So I'll make those be a bit bigger. And I like it about like that. Okay. So now it's falling pretty heavy and it's bigger, right? You can make it drift. You can make it kind of like move around a bit where it kind of falls left and right and kind of floats. So I can bring that all the way up. And you'll see it kind of move back and forth that way. They'll kind of cross each other, which is another cool effect to make it look almost windy outside. All right. And since it's snow, we keep it at the white color, but you can make this be whatever color you want. So you can make it be a different color of something, right? It won't be snow at that point. You can make it look like it's, I guess, like a one color type of confetti, ideally, I guess you could say. You also can change how much it is, right? So I can make it go from 300 to 490, right? And that looks like just more snow. I can make it go to 650. So it's just even more. All right. And then once you're done, you got your new, oh no, where's my new snow? Oh, here we go, up here. So I got my new snow. I got my snow nonstop there, but I got new snow that's even more, it's even faster, even windier. All right. So now that's an action. If I go back to my show, that's not an action. It's actually a effect. I'm sorry. And so I've got one here, but I'm going to create a new one to go onto this one to show that I can add that snow to this. Now, ideally, I would love to be able to just drag that on there. And what happens is it shows up and it's tied to that particular slide. All right. What I did was I actually created an action that made it go there, but you'll get this little icon, which is really cool. This is the effects icon that when you drag it on, it'll automatically show up on that slide for as long as you're on that slide. And so if I go back, it actually stays there throughout. So you have to remove it as an overlay if you want to get rid of it, right? So it showed up on the previous slide there. So I would have to hit that. Now it's completely blank. And then when I go to that slide again, the snow comes in and you'll see it show up there. It's showing up over the top of my screen too, because I've got the overlay on. Let me turn that off so you guys can see me a little bit better. And this is what it looks like there. And so this is the effect. Hopefully this makes sense to you to where you can use this in your ministry time. It's a really cool idea. And let me know what questions you have or ideas you have for what you would do with this new gradient text, gradient backdrops, and these special effects in FreeShow. Thank you for watching this video. I really hope it helped you in a major way. Now, at this point, most people would ask you to like and subscribe, and I think that's great. But my goal is a little bit different. My goal is to empower as many people as possible all over the globe. And there's one way that you can really help me do that. And that is to leave a comment below with a question, a thought, how this video may have helped you, or things that were left out that you still have questions about, and to share this video with someone just like you. Someone who is looking for answers, someone who's curious and wants to grow. With your help, I believe we can build a community of people that want to grow together. So until next time, God bless.